welcome to Political Voices on 92.5, Enugu's Dream FM. Political Voices is a session of comments, interviews and analyses of trending political stories as they affect and shape the world around you. Today is Wednesday and our focus today is on Magu's suspension and implications on the fight against corruption. That is Ibrahim Magu, the embattled lead frontline man of the EFCC. And before we get into all that discussion, there are one or two issues cropping up from the political space. All right. A presidential panel was set up by President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday, and they grilled the acting chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Magu. He was grilled for 6 hours. In fact, latest report is saying that Magu's house has been searched by the police. That's the latest report. And as the investigations against him continues, and he remains suspended as the investigation continues. And some of the issues still, Governor Nyesom Wike of River State is telling Abdullahi Ganduje of Kanu that his dollars will not work in Edo. That's one of the issues coming up there. So the dollars will not work over there, and a great deal of other issues that are dropping from the political space. Remember, we are live on 3 platforms. On Facebook, it's 925 Dream FM. Do well to join us to have the live video there. On Twitter, it is Dream925 FM. And if you want to have the best experience of it, go to YouTube, our YouTube channel on Dream TV Enugu, where we are live. You can also actually make your live comments there. Some people were saying that he couldn't comment. You can comment on our YouTube channel. There's a live chat connection there. So do well to join us on those platforms. And remember still that you can enjoy the audio stream on our website and send us a WhatsApp message on 090200202925. Stay with us. Ibrahim Magu, until recently, was of course the frontline man at the EFCC. But as we speak, Magu isn't exactly enjoying the best of times. It's on record too that Magu has been the longest leader of the EFCC that has been there on acting capacity. He was not confirmed by the Senate. In fact, there were several attempts to confirm him, but the Senate rebuffed that move, and he kept on fighting these battles until he was now called for this particular investigation that is presidential. They say it's presidential investigative panel against Ibrahim Magu to talk to us about the implications of Magu's suspension and subsequent investigation on the fight against corruption. We are joined this morning by Barrister Cosmas Okolo. He is an Enugu-based lawyer, public policy analyst, and the executive director, Amrich Leadership Center. Good morning to you, sir, and thanks for joining us on Political Voices.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much. You're welcome, listeners.
And also on the program this morning is Honorable Magu. He's a constitutional lawyer. He's a human rights activist and former lawmaker in Enugu State House of Assembly, where he represented Kano West. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Alex. Good morning, listeners.
All right, I'll ask you, Barrister Cosmas Okolo, if the leader of the anti-corruption agency in Nigeria is being investigated for acts of corruption, what does it say about the fight against corruption in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much, Alex. But I want to correct one impression. What is has befallen Ibrahim Magu is an allegation. He has not been convicted.
No, that's what we're saying.
He has not been found guilty.
It's been investigated. That's
competent court of jurisdiction. So he remains innocent until proven guilty by a competent court of law. Even if the panel finds him wanting, and suspend or sack him under our law is not yet a convict. Assuming they find him wanting in his office, involved in corruption, after the investigation, they should forward the matter to the Office of Attorney General of the Federation, who will then press charges against him before a court. If found guilty, then he becomes a convict. For now, he should be given that privilege of being deemed an innocent citizen. And again, the whole drama of his arrest, searching his house, all this drama, is, for me, is uncalled for. Why do I say so? In December 2016, the current president, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, forwarded the name of Ibrahim Magu to the 8th Senate, led by Senator Bukola Saraki, requesting for his confirmation as the substantive EFCC chairman. The 8th Senate said that they had before them a security report, petitions from the Department of State Services, DSS, indicting Ibrahim Magu of corrupt practices. Based on that, the 8th Senate said they turned down his president's request for his confirmation. On 15th of March 2017 again, the president also forwarded the name of Ibrahim Magu to the Senate for confirmation as required under Section 2, subsection 3 of the Constitution as amended. Again, for the second time, the 8th Senate turned down that request from the president to confirm his appointment as the chairman of the EFCC on the ground that they had a report before them and petitions for the Department of State Services, DSS, that they had accusation of corruption against Ibrahim Magu. Yet, the president insisted that he must continue in office as the acting chairman of the EFCC. Now, yesterday, 7th of July, 2020, if you calculate from the first time they made that issue public, 1st December 2016, that's about 4 years ago. Yesterday, we read in the news that Ibrahim Magu has been suspended by the president based on allegations of corruption. The question that follows is this: why did it have to take this long for the presidency to investigate what was pointed out based on a report from another arm of the executive arm of government, the DSS, since 2016, to investigate the allegation? Why wait till now? And why insist on his confirmation by the 8th Senate when obviously there was a report from the DSS, which could have been, the panel could have been set up there to investigate, and he had to remain in office from 2015, that he was appointed 9th November till date, in an acting capacity, which is not envisaged by the Constitution. And so, the whole drama is uncalled for. It's uncalled for. This ought to have been done when it was first raised by the DSS, an intelligence security agency in Nigeria. Be that as it may, the Ibrahim Magu has served the country until he is found convicted by a court of competence. It would not be unfair to vilify his personality. He's done his bit. Then if he's found guilty, one under the law, he should face the music. However, it is not good to always denigrate the integrity of public servants when you want to remove them. That's what I'm trying to say. If you want to remove him, you can.
You remove the person. All right. So, Honorable Wabezugu, do you also toe the line of Barrister Cosmos Okolo that if you want to do away with the man, do away with the man? Don't hoist things on his head.
I honestly cannot agree any less, because it won't be proper to go back to the history that Cosmos has already told us. But what is very clear, it may be a little repeating. What is very clear is that this is a man who had who so much enjoyed the trust and confidence of Mr. President, that even after the DSS repeatedly insisted man was corrupt. Mr. President said no. From day one, we do not know the power play that took place in Aso Rock before his name was presented ab initio to Senate for confirmation in accordance with the provisions of the EFCC Act, Section 2, Subsection 3. But what we know as Nigerians is that when his name was first presented to the Senate in December 2016, the Senate, based on the report of the DSS that said this man was corrupt, the Senate declined to confirm him. And after that, Mr. President still insisted this man should continue in acting capacity, which is unheard of. The EFCC Act does not talk about an acting chairman of EFCC. It says very clearly, the chairman of EFCC. And you cannot have any position in that commission that is not provided for by the Act. Like I did say, remember, the Act didn't talk about acting chairman. The implication is that as before the next man retires, you have already submitted another name to the Senate for confirmation to ensure that no vacuum is created. But of course, if there's a vacuum, you do not need to bring an acting chairman. There are some other officers in that commission that will perform the functions and responsibilities of the chairman until a new chairman is appointed. But what is important here is that Mr. President has so much confidence and trust of this man and insisted the man should continue even after the Senate refused to confirm him on the basis of a report presented by the foremost intelligence organization in this country. Foremost, I repeat. Now, at the end of the day, 2 years after, Mr. President brought back this name to the Senate. DSS represented their report to the same Senate, and Senate still refused to confirm him. Mr. President, because of the trust and confidence he has in this man, still insisted the man should continue. Remember, corruption must fight back, and the man was fighting corruption. Again, remember, there's been a lot of fingers pointed against the Federal Attorney General as far as corruption is concerned in Nigeria. There has been several accusing fingers pointed on his person. Remember also that for a long time we have continued to hear squabbles between the Federal Attorney General and the EFCC, especially the EFCC chairman. I read in the papers that one of the reasons that the Attorney General, remember the EFCC chairman is now being investigated based on the report written to Mr. President by the Federal Attorney General. That's why he has to be brought into the picture. Now, one of the reasons that the Federal Attorney General gave is that Magu has been insubordinate. He has refused to subject himself to the Federal Attorney General. But I want to say that the EFCC Act of 2004, which came into effect on 4th June 2004, and which repealed the Financial and Crimes Establishment Act of 2002, never said that the EFCC or the EFCC chairman should be subordinated to the Federal Attorney General. That act did not say that anybody should supervise activities of EFCC. It didn't say the Attorney General should do that. It's an agency created by the presidency and under the office of the presidency, not the office of the Attorney General. Now, if you look at the prosecutorial powers of the Federal Attorney General under section 174, subsection 1, it says, paragraph A says that the Federal Attorney General can institute and undertake any criminal proceedings. B says the Federal Attorney General can take over and continue any criminal trial that has been instituted by either himself, that's his office, or any other body, any other agency. And of course, paragraph C says the man can discontinue. We call it nolle prosequi. That's a Latin maxim. These are the only three powers that the Federal Attorney General has under his prosecutorial powers. That's the only thing he can do to any criminal charge anywhere. He's not in charge of investigation. He does not have any business with investigation. EFCC, their number one job is to investigate. And so there is, by implication, the EFCC Act did not subordinate the activities of EFCC to that of the Federal Attorney General.
All right.
It's only after EFCC has brought a suit, a charge to court, that the powers of the Attorney General can be ignited.
Okay.
Only after a charge has been brought. But remember that one of the allegations, I want to believe that probably may be the number one allegation, the number one reason why the Attorney General decided to write that memo to Mr. President, and even brought suggested names of people that should take over from him. One of the major reasons is that we were told that there were some files of some high-ranking people who probably may have stolen billions of naira. I said may have. You see, that the Federal Attorney General requested from EFCC and has continued to request, and the EFCC chairman rebuffed that request. Of course, it was very right for the EFCC chairman to have refused to surrender those files, because the Federal Attorney General does not have any power under any law in Nigeria to request for those files.
Okay.
Like I did say, his powers can only be ignited after a charge has been pressed to court.
Okay then. Oh, now the perspective is changing. So constitutionally, Barrister Cosmos, there seem to be many implications for what is going on. But what will be the implications for the fight against corruption? Because there is a perception this will present. What kind of perception would that be?
Yeah, thank you very much. The implication of the fight against corruption is that it will serve a negative purpose in the fight against corruption, because there seems to be lack of coordination within the presidency. Obviously, lack of proper coordination within the presidency, and obvious attempt to usurp the powers of a statutory body established by the National Assembly to do the work of fighting, investigating, prosecuting, and enforcement of economic and financial crimes, obviously. And it is very dangerous to this fight against corruption. It has ridiculed the whole procedure and exercise, because, like my co-analyst rightly said, the FCC has the power to investigate, they have the power to enforce, they have the power to prosecute. What the Attorney General can only do is to enter a nolle prosequi under Section 174, like he rightly pointed out. So what the Honorable Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Abba Malami SN, is inferring that EFCC ought to report to him in respect of matters they are prosecuting is not within the contemplation of the Constitution. It's ultra vires his powers. He can only intervene to enter nolle in respect of a matter. However, they did not have made this public. There ought to have been in place synergy, proper administrative synergy between all the law enforcement agencies in Nigeria with the Office of the Attorney General. In other words, if any particular office is trying to ridicule work of the other one, they can bring the matter before the president, who will internally deal with the matter. They need not make this public because it's throwing up a negative impression about the fight against corruption, not just locally, but internationally. It's not giving Nigeria a very good image. And it also comes to the issue of let the president step in and do what he ought to do as the president and commander-in-chief. Because the whole buck stops at this table. He's the one that should call these ones to order. That you are not acting within the ambits of your powers. You are exceeding the ambits of your powers. And call them to order in the circumstance. Because what has happened now is that the news says Ibrahim Magu is on suspension. He will hear from the presidency soon. You have created a gap. You have created an intersection which nobody knows how it will go. Within that period, he is not in power. No substantive chairman of the FCC. Anything can happen. Some files could be tampered with. Some documents could be a lot of things could go wrong. You don't create a vacuum in a system as sensitive as the EFCC, as the case may be. So what I'm trying to say is that in the circumstance, the pressure is negative, but the president can step in and resolve the matter. Again, there is need for legislative intervention. National Assembly should revisit the FCC Act and give them more powers and clearly state what are the boundaries of their powers, and also amend the constitution, even though that is tough in Nigeria. And the 8th Senate sought to make it easier by making constitutional amendment easier, because as at now, to amend any part of the constitution, it will take stuff. And if they succeed in doing that, they will now let the Attorney General know by constitutional provision that your powers stops here, your powers begin here, doesn't exceed to the powers of the FCC. You remember when the issue arose as the issue of confirmation by the Senate under Section 2.3. It was an issue whether the president ought to present a chairman, Ibrahim Magu's name, to the Senate for confirmation as chairman. Section 171 subsection 2D says that in the appointment of the heads of extra-ministerial departments, however described, the president need not get confirmation. That's section 171(2)D, which is the constitutional provision. EFCC Act 2.3 says after appointment by the president, there will be confirmation by the Senate. So you see a conflict between the EFCC Act and the Constitution. Section 1.3 says Constitution is supreme. So the circumstance, however, that provision by the FCC Act was made with good intention, that if you want to appoint somebody to head such an organization, the Senate, the public should be involved through their representatives at the National Assembly. So these are issues, there's need for also legislative intervention in respect of the matter.
All right. Honorable Wabezugu, the presidency says in a statement that the suspension of Magu means that nobody is above the law. And now, talk to us about what this means, because there seem to be a lot of intersections in how the law is interpreted and what should be the true position. And another example I will cite very quickly is what's going on between the Minister of State for Labor and the National Assembly. Festus Keyamo says that under the law that he is in charge of NDE, and then the National Assembly says that they are suspending everything. In fact, they are handing over the whole activity to the National Directorate for Employment. But Keyamo says the Constitution is clear on the matter. So if the presidency says that nobody is above the law, what's your view on this? Is this what we're seeing versus what they are saying?
I agree completely that nobody is above the law. The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria made it very clear under Section 1 of the Constitution. In fact, Sections 1 to 3 is the first chapter of the Constitution that deals on the supremacy of the 1999 Constitution, and says very clearly that no part of this country, or indeed the entire federation, shall be governed by anybody except in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. So the Constitution has has looked at everything under the sun, provided for everything, so that any law you are making must have its validity, in fact derive its validity from the Constitution. If it does not, that law is inchoate, it's null, it is void, it is of no legal consequence. So, and the Constitution, as well as every other law in this country, has said that everybody is equal before the law. In fact, I think that what is going on in Nigeria could perfectly be likened to what happened in Animal Farm. In Animal Farm, all the animals came together and they made a law that all animals are equal. Napoleon, of course, felt he was bigger than others. He said, how can he be equal with ant? How can he be equal with this one? Decided to call another meeting and told them he agrees, so every animal is equal. But there's a need to also include that some animals are more equal than others. That's what is going on in Nigeria. The law says everybody is equal. But the big question, is everybody actually equal before the Nigerian law? Go to the prison, you will hardly get any rich man that is there, that is detained awaiting the confirmation of the DPP for the crime that will be pressed against him. It's difficult to see, unless there's a governor that is interested or it's a political case. You hardly also see any big man that was convicted and imprisoned, except it's a political case, or there is one big man that insisted he should get in there. And so you now ask, is everybody actually equal before the Nigerian law? In any event, the law says everybody is equal. But I don't know. The result doesn't seem to be exactly what the law is saying it should be.
Okay, we'll get more insight on that. This is Political Voices on 92.5 Enugu's Dream FM. This morning we're taking a look at the implications of Magu's suspension on the fight against corruption in Nigeria. And in the studio this morning, I'm having this robust conversation with Barrister Cosmos Okolo. He is an Enugu-based lawyer, public policy analyst, and the executive director, Amrich Leadership Center. And also here this morning is Honorable Nwabe Zogu, a constitutional lawyer, human rights activist, and a former lawmaker in the Enugu State House of Assembly, where he represented Nkanu West. And of course, it's time for you to be heard on the program. First, we'll try to take comments from the three platforms: Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, I should say. And then we'll take your comments on WhatsApp, if we have it on now. And of course, do well to send your messages as fast as possible so you don't miss out on that experience. Call us on 0902002095, or you can call 0809888925. Keep your comments short. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's your name and location? You're welcome.
The existence of Ibrahim Magu as an acting chairman has changed, and the judiciary has been keeping. First of all, I have to treat them there, because I didn't follow them, and I cannot follow them. I don't even listen to them. Both of the analysts there, I don't know that they could have been at different parties this morning, because they were judiciary. They themselves were lawyers, and they could not able to condemn the action of allowing Ibrahim Magu to be acting as an acting chairman up to now. The judiciary has been silent today. They're not here talking about the third party to Ibrahim Magu. Are we talking, are we saying that they're removing or suspending Ibrahim Magu by the presidency, or whatever, whoever that is on that, maybe Magu, is it acting in order, or what is happening, or that we cannot listen to the rule of law, what is going on by the way. Then, in the issue of Magu, everybody knows that he's corrupt. He has not been found or given a bill of health. He has investigated in several places. Reports have gone, and nobody has ever. Are we telling me, you're telling me that we cannot even find anyone that is bigger or more than Magu in Nigeria? And to allow somebody who is as corrupt as he to go to your ambassador.
No court has pronounced Magu guilty of anything. So this you are sharing your opinion.
Has he been able to investigate it? DSS bring out information given to the Senate and but not to be cleared and not give them. We are not talking about 7 months. Who has even having all these delusions, the problem within the line on his head. Look at what you're talking about. Like are not happy. And they are not even talking about it.
Thank you.
Talking about saying Nigeria should pronounce and court.
Thank you, David. So we can accommodate other people. On Facebook, 925 Dream FM. Vintus Ugu says, good morning. Whatever that is happening at EFCC was propagated by the president when he allowed a no-feed base and initial report by DSS to remain in office even beyond the allowable period of acting appointment by public service rule. Let's take a call. If you can, 090200200925.
Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning. What's the name and location? Hello? I'm sorry, we can barely hear you. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's your name and location?
I'm calling from Magu.
You're welcome.
Please, I want to ask a question. Constitutionally, how long is somebody to stay in acting capacity in Nigeria? How long can somebody stay in acting capacity in Nigeria in anything?
All right. Okay then, thank you. All right, another message on Facebook. It says, Ezike Ike Chukura says, if Magu is ever found guilty of this, the irony of being a perpetrator of the very vice he was employed to stop may demoralize a generation of change makers misled to think that change has come. Another call. Hello? Oh dear. Hello? Alright then. Close at 090200200925. Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Alex.
What's your name and location?
My name is Honorable Sajeri Bokodo. I'm calling you from GRA, okay?
You're welcome.
Yeah, Alex, the council have done justice to this matter. What I can only add is that it does not portray Nigeria as a stable country. It's a place where anything goes. That Magu was brought to the National Assembly, and they rejected it for want of corruption and level again. And the president is seated. So, it makes Nigeria look unstable. And, this is a matter that is concerns the international community. So they are looking at us as very unstable. I don't like it at all. And let the president prove his man. Because he comes the whole truth. Thank you very much.
All right, then. Thank you so much. On Twitter, that is Dream925FM. Ike Wanko says, Ibrahim Magu is not above the law. He should submit himself to proper investigation. Our politicians should know that nobody is above the law in this country. And Abo Ikabo on Twitter still, that's Dream925FM, says the implication is that if you are doing government work, you must submit yourself to accountability. It's a lesson for all public servants to always come clean with no skeleton in their cupboard, because there is always a day to answer for service rendered, whether good or bad. More calls now. 090200200925. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
What's your name and location?
Hello?
Hello, what's your name and location?
Hello.
All right,
Thank you. My name is Abdullahi. I'm calling from Enugu State.
you're welcome.
Thank you. You see what is happening over this every day is social story. Story of us to every by the and it is so.
All right, then. I think we lost him. And quickly on YouTube, our YouTube channel, Dream TV Enugu, Emmanuel Israel Obioso says, blissful morning to you, Mr. Alex and the analyst. Great job. Keep it up. God bless you all. God bless you too. And Prince Ugobanda BC says, the federal government should do justice to this. Okay. All right. I'm sure that the federal government will do that. Hello, good morning. Implications of suspension of Ibrahim Magu on the fight against corruption in Nigeria. What's the name and location? You're welcome.
Thank you. I just want to ask one question, please. My question is which in Nigeria? Because what we are seeing now, I don't think.
All right. Did you abandon the question halfway? All right. Then. Okay. Quickly, we'll come back and talk more, but let me quickly take a few comments on Facebook. Facebook. Onyebuchi Liviano says that he sent a message from Archie in Ojo River. He says EFCC Chairman Ibrahim Magu being under investigation now is laughable. We all have seen how the person appointed to fight corruption is being accused of engaging in corrupt practices. Remember that the government that came in power with the impression of fighting corruption, but reverse is now the case. Alright, so that's how he said it. Omagandaman says a clear indication that nobody is above the law. When you are watching others are as well watching you. Nat Smoker says Magu can only be seen as an attack dog of the president. He really did not fight corruption but perceived corrupt enemies of the ruling government. Amos Smallbar says the anti-graft agencies in Nigeria need full independence from the executive control that will enable them fight against corruption to have a leeway, otherwise the cabal in any government will not allow them to perform. And lots of messages. I hope you guys will understand that we'll have limited time to take on all the messages. I'm trying, but that's so many of them. I'll start by asking Barrister Cosmos Okolo. You've heard what the people are saying. If you're watching someone is watching you. And one quick question, they are talking about being in acting capacity. How long can it last? Now, because in this case, we are talking about someone who was appointed by the president.
Yeah, my friend and brother, who has pointed it out earlier, that within the EFCC Act 2004, there's no provision for acting chairman. In fact, the title acting chairman is not within the contemplation even of the Constitution. So what you may call it is an administrative intervention until you appoint a substantive chairman. And Section 2, Subsection 3 of the FCC Act, which provides that the chairman and members of the commission, excluding ex officio members, shall be appointed by the president, subject to the confirmation of the Senate. Now, the president is the one that appoints them. So for the president to appoint an acting chairman, what it means is that he is made so subject to the confirmation by the Senate. But in this case, this man's confirmation was refused at the first instance in December 2016. Yet, the president allowed him to continue in office and presented him again on 15th of March 2017. That is the query. So the problem is not with Magu. The problem is the person who allowed him to continue in office. I don't know if you understand. Let's get the law straight. The problem is that the Senate, as provided by the FCC Act, has said, we don't want to confirm this man. And having done that, the president should have just dropped him and got somebody else. He's not the only man who can do the work. I also give you another instance. In 2007, the tenure of the pioneer chairman of the FCC elapsed. That's Urbadu's tenure ended in 2007. The then president, Umaru Musaira, removed him. In fact, there was even an allegation against him. The allegation was that he did not declare all his assets. As wonderfully well he did in office. He said he did not declare his assets, which ordinarily should be a corrupt incident, and he was removed. There was somebody who stepped in, Ibrahim Lamodi. He stepped in from January 2008 till May 2008. So he acted as acting chairman. So it is not out of place to have an acting chairman, even though nobody can constitution the law. What that means is that that period is a period within which you now, it ought not to be so, but that's what, has somebody must step in until there's a proper substantive chairman to act for the office. I remember then, Ibrahim Lamode was the head operations unit of the EFCC. In fact, the pioneer head operations unit. Ibrahim Magu also was the pioneer head administrative and finance department of the EFCC. So it's not the first time this has happened, even though it's not within the constitution. So it's an administrative lapse in the office within the corridors of the presidency. Again, this is not the first time an EFCC chairman has been alleged to have committed corruption. Farida Waziri was accused of corruption. Chairman of the EFCC between December 20, if I'm right now, between May 2008 to December 2011, Farida Waziri was the EFCC chairman. She was removed by then President Goodluck Jonathan, removed on accusations of corruption. So this is not the first time allegation of corruption has been made. So, but what we're trying to say is, but what happened to that case was, we didn't see light of the day. Was she convicted thereafter, and what happened? So what we are saying is that there seems to be a lacuna within the administrative setup between the presidency and the EFCC and the Office of the Attorney General. And this issue that have to be resolved statutorily by addressing the EFCC Act when you see those gaps, and the Constitution as it affects the powers of the president to appoint. So acting capacity is not within the constitution of the law, even though it could be done as an administrative measure in the interim until you appoint a substantive. But the blame, I repeat, is not with Ibrahim Magu. The blame is with the person who allowed him to continue in office when the allegation was raised since 2006. What was done?
All right, then. Honorable Mwabezugu, do you have the impression, do you get that feeling that corruption is fighting back in one way or the other?
Like I did say, ab initio, I did say that corruption is actually fighting back. Because how did this memo suspending Magu and investigating him, how did it emanate? The man who raised that memo, are his hands clean? From the one, he has been fingered trying to pilot the affairs of EFCC, because it was said that there are certain persons whose case he was interested in. So it's a case of corruption fighting back. But like I did say, the EFCC Act, to a great extent, took care of a lot of things. Because the drafters of that law knew that corruption was going to fight back. That's why they did not subordinate EFCC to anybody's office. So the EFCC, remember, like I did say earlier, before now, there has been skirmishes between EFCC chairman and the Attorney General. The Attorney General has always wanted to have the EFCC in his apron strings to control EFCC. But the law did not say he should do that. And if he begins to do that, EFCC will become a toothless bulldog. And so I am thinking that, of course, I agree completely. There was somebody that said that it's important that the watchdog should also be watched. I agree completely. But while somebody is watching EFCC, that person ought not to be known by even the EFCC themselves. There should be an underground, under a secret, probably few persons that are well trusted by Mr. President, that will continue to dig into EFCC, look into everything they're doing without anybody in EFCC knowing that any person is watching them. That's the proper way these things are done. So that you will know when they begin to dance away, when corruption sets in, when somebody there is being corrupt. Because the truth of the matter is that because of the high-profile cases they handle, and because of the profligacy of Nigerians, that desire of a lot of Nigerian public officers to get corrupt, to steal even more than they require, steal billions. Now they will want to steal even trillions. That because of that desire, which is an unquenchable thirst, they will also want to cover their tracks. That means giving bribe to that man that will bring them to book. And so that office is very tempting. Corruption will always be hidden there. That's why the president ought to have some persons that will be sniffing into what is going on there without anybody knowing, and then reporting back to Mr. President, not the Attorney General.
Okay.
Again, it's also important, please, just for very shortly. See, like I did say, like Cosmos has also repeated, when you are interpreting a law, there is that rule of interpretation that says a jusdem generis. You interpret that law from the surrounding context. If you look at the entire EFCC Act, it kept saying the chairman, the chairman, the chairman, not an acting chairman. And so, at the initial, it was wrong to have had an acting chairman. You don't. Because it means that the job the man has been doing is an illegal one. The law does not contemplate it. The law does not allow him to do that. Also, that rule of interpretation that says that expressio unis est exclusio alteris rule, that whatever is not allowed, the express mention of one thing is the exclusion of everything else.
All right.
Whatever the law has not permitted is assumed to have been refused by that law.
Okay.
And so you cannot impose into that law a thing that law has not allowed.
Right.
It was wrong to have had an acting chairman. There is nobody that is retiring from EFCC, the chairman precisely, or the secretary, that the presidency will not know is retiring. And of course, the man that is going to retire after 4 years service, in accordance with the Act, the EFCC Act, will also inform the presidency on time, way ahead.
Okay.
So the presidency knows. And the president ought always to present these names on time to the Senate for confirmation, and the Senate will do that.
All right, let's please take a few more messages from Facebook so that I don't get so angry with me. Desmond Bliss Iloabuchi says, Magu is just a victim of circumstance. I perceive it was just a high cabal power play that brought him down, and not because of Buhari's integrity. The president says nobody is above the law or scrutiny. And then Nnamdi Chukwuma Egon says the question is not whether Magu is corrupt or not. He obviously is. Well, that's your opinion. Truth is, the case is a power struggle between the then different blocks of cabal in the present administration. It is also clearly part of the final dismantling of the bloc led by late Abba Kyari. And Moramino Feromino says, with the said recovered loot, yet the country is busy looking for loans. Okay. And Ago Isaac says it is absolutely wrong to fight corruption with illegality. And Sogwacheka says what's happening in the presidency is quite unfortunate. It clearly shows no coordination at that level of governance. Maxwell Evaristo Sekene says that his take on the topic this morning is that the present government is not fighting corruption in any way. Rather, they fight political opponents. And okay, too many of it. We'll have to tie things up. Barrister Cosmos Okolo, your final thoughts on what's going on today, especially on the implications of this on the fight against corruption.
The developments surrounding the appointment of Ibrahim Magu should not stall the fight against corruption. While the investigation is going on, it's obvious he may not come back. Like my journalist said, the president should appoint a new chairman for the FCC and then forward to the 9th Senate for confirmation so that the system can continue to run. It should be a system-based governance. It's not about one man. There's no one man who can do everything. Let's have a system that's running on its own. So let the president recommend a substantive chairman and forward the name to the 9th Senate in the interim. Then the investigation can go on. If he's found wanting, then he should face the law. Is free, then he declare free. And then for us to have a lasting solution that this will not repeat itself, let there be a legislative intervention as it affects the FCC Act and the Constitution on the operation of the anti-graft agencies, because they are very vital in this war against corruption. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.